Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to another episode of the Coach Cody podcast. I'm recording this at kind of a weird time for me, so if you notice, there's this like strip of sunlight just trying to peek its way through my window into my eyeballs. So I'm recording in the morning, which I don't normally do. But anyways, there's a certain topic that I really want to cover, particularly right now, because there's a lot of competitors. I have a good amount of competitors this year who are about to be post-show, or I just want to put out how to transition from being in season, prepping for a show, into off season, going into reverse dieting. What do you do after you get up on stage? You have your little moment of fame or showing off all the hard work you put in for the past months. Prep is not easy. It is not even short. It tends to go fast, but you're looking at least like anywhere between 20, 15, 12 weeks, or sometimes 25 depending. But how do you transition into an off season? And how do you do that without gaining too much fat? How do you do that without going to fuck it mode? And how do you control post-show binging? So that is the one thing that I want to hop in first, because it's a thing. Post-show binges, it's very common. And I will say a lot of first-time competitors tend to make the binging mistake just because lack of experience, for better words. So if you are new to competition, I just wanted to prep you in knowing what to expect, how to avoid falling into post-show binges, gaining too much fat post-show. And so of course, the biggest reason you're going to be inclined to binge post-show is because you have been restricted for a good amount of time. You've been extremely hungry. And let me just reiterate that this is different than just coming out of a dieting phase for the most part. Bodybuilding is to the extreme. Dieting to single-digit body fat percentages, it is not for the pursuit of health. So this is why it is so much more important to consider health when you're transitioning from being in prep to going into off-season. You really are transitioning into a health phase, trying to get your body back to homeostasis, where it was before you stressed it the fuck out, before you pummeled it into the ground with low calories and high activity. And it's going to take a second for your body to recover. It's going to be stressed. It's going to be tired. And just some things for you to expect. Don't just expect that you're going to be able to get right back into it and feel 100%. You're going to need to take a little recovery. So I guess that's a good thing to talk about first. I do want to talk about controlling post-show binging, because that's one of the most prevalent things, most common thing that happens, especially amongst new bodybuilders. The more seasoned you get, the less inclination to binge occurs. But first, when it comes to the physical aspect of it, I always say, say you compete, Saturday is your show. It's a good idea to kind of take like a deload week the week after, and you could do that by like lowering or having the percentage of your volume, decreasing your intensity, or you could straight out probably take a complete week off out of the gym after you compete and just let your body rest. You're not going to lose muscle over it. It's not going to cause any sort of, setback, because your body needs to rest. It is stressed the fuck out. So definitely recommend resting post-show, just to give your body a little time to recover from all the stress from the past weeks, months, from really pushing it, pushing as hard as you can. And if you're not needing recovery after a bodybuilding show, chances are maybe you didn't push hard enough. Or maybe you're just one of those persons that is a little bit doesn't connect with their body very well. I tend to be that type of person where you kind of don't know you're tired until you crash. So don't be that person. Try to be mindful of what your body is telling you. Give it some rest. It's going to be more beneficial if you do. So the biggest thing that we want to control post-show is binging. You're going to be primed to binge because you've been hungry. You've been restricted for weeks, months, and it's not easy because you just want to eat all the things. How can you not when you've been hungry and starving? You've not had any treat meals, it's a recipe for a binge. We know this. Restricting your food is a recipe for a binge, but considering we're doing this for a sport, for an extreme reason, we know those consequences. We weigh we weigh the consequences. We know that that potentially we might binge post show, but that's when you just got to be prepared for it and try to mitigate it as much as possible. So, the physiological reasons for wanting to binge, obviously you're hungry, your body thinks it's starving. Like, our bodies don't know what's happening outside. They can't tell the difference between starving strategically for a bodybuilding show versus starving because there's actually no food. So it's our job to kind of regulate our bodies and be like, hey, no, we're not actually starving. We do have food. We are just choosing to do this for some crazy reason because we're humans. And this is what we do to entertain ourselves on Earth until we die. So anyways, which is weird. We do a lot of weird shit as humans to like just entertain ourselves until, the inevitable. But we won't get into those morbid, dark thoughts yet. Maybe ever. But so binging. The thing that I like to remind my clients, myself included, these are all things that I've applied to myself, is that post-show, you need to remind yourself that the food is not going anywhere. Your mind and body have a sense of urgency to want to eat. It just does. But when you get that food and it is available to you, even your first post-show meal, take it slow. Don't go crazy. 0 to 100. Don't eat like the biggest meal of your life. Pace yourself because the food, again, is not going anywhere. No one's going to take it away from you. We are not suddenly going to run out of In-N-Out burgers and pizza or whatever it is you've been craving. Sushi. I usually go for sushi. So you're going to have many more opportunities to enjoy those treat meals. And just because you were restricted from it in the past does not mean that moving forward, you're not going to be able to have those things. And I will say there is nothing like the delayed gratification of a post-show meal that you have been craving for months. It's the best feeling in the world, but don't ruin it by binging and making yourself feel like shit to the point where sometimes people eat they go so hard on the post-show treats that they make themselves sick and you end up throwing up, and it's not a fun time either. So don't do that. Keep it controlled. Try to keep it mindful. Make a plan. Maybe that plan is, I like to say for my clients, take like the next 3 days off. Have your show, have your treat meal, enjoy some time with family. Try to keep the sweets and treats to one day. It's almost like Christmas and Thanksgiving. Like, one day won't hurt. Do what you need to do. Try not to make yourself sick. And then the next day, kind of just eat intuitively. Make sure you're still getting good foods and you're not just continuing this binge. Don't make it a week-long binge. Don't make it even a 3-day-long binge. Make sure you are keeping things balanced and try to consider that you're going to want to use this time as ample opportunity to build muscle, and I'll tell you a little bit more about in the next thing. But as far as preventing the binge, again, next couple of days after the show, intuitively eat, but stick to whole nutrient-dense foods, balanced meals, maybe a little treat on the second day that you might have been craving, but then really start to taper it off. By the third day, you should be eating pretty normally, maybe not tracking yet, but eating your normal foods, balanced, healthy meals, lean sources of protein, chicken, rice, whatever, just so you can get some normalcy back in your life. And hopefully by that time, you've had enough sweets and treats where you're kind of ready to get back into it. Those cravings are still going to hit, so be prepared for that. Maybe have some sweet substitutes, but it really is going to be progressively dialing back in your diet from there, progressively reeling back in your mindset and starting to focus on your goals in the future. And so that's kind of like the main importance of transitioning, is looking towards the future and how your decisions now are going to impact that in the future, because it's going to be a lot harder to get back into things if you're just binging and you're putting on way more fat than you need to put on. It's going to make things harder in the long run. So anyways, that's where I want to transition into fat gain. So post-show is a great time to focus on growth. You're primed to build, but the unfortunate part is you're not only primed to build muscle, you are primed to store fat and gain fat. So this is how you need to use it. This is why you need to use this time period wisely and not just use it as a free-for-all to eat whatever you want, because it's not going to play in your favor in the long run. So if you're looking to improve your physique and compete again, then you still want to pay attention to the food you're eating, making sure it's nutrient-dense food, making sure you're not completely overdoing it and adding fat rapidly to your physique. So post-show, your insulin sensitivity is going to be very high. You've been basically starving. And, insulin is like the key that unlocks the cells so that it can push nutrients into them. And this could be unfortunate, like we could be storing fat in that scenario, or we use it to push nutrients our bodies can use to build muscle in those scenarios. So this is why it's important to make sure your food selection, you're keeping your calories still decently controlled, so we are not giving our body ample opportunity to gain fat. So we can still put it to good use. We just have to be strategic about it. So don't go thinking off-season means no strategy. That's completely false. Off-season is just as strategic as prep. And it should be taken just as importantly, because in your off-season, that is where you are building the foundation of your physique. If you want to do better the next time you step on stage, you have to make sure that you are strategically gaining muscle, strategically improving your physique in the off season in order to bring a better package the next time. So if you just think that off season is a time to take time off and kind of be willy-nilly about things, I mean, sure, if you don't want to improve, you can definitely do that. But if you want to build muscle, you want to improve your physique, this is a great time to stay focused and stay strategic for things. So, again, focus on nutrient-dense foods. Try not to make poor choices. Try not to just focus on the treats and all the things that you want to eat. Food's going to be there, so that's the same reminder there. It's not going anywhere. So, yeah. Also, keep your, I'd say structure your off season how you did before you started prep. Have 1 to 2 free meals for that week, and the rest you're on track. And then that way, with time, as your body comes back to homeostasis, the urge to binge is going to come way down, because you're going to start putting some body fat on. It's inevitable. There's a healthy amount of body fat that you're going to put on, so don't be freaked out. This is the opposite end of the spectrum too, okay? Don't want to forget about this one. So there's also the urge to binge and putting on fat too rapidly. Then there's the other side of the spectrum where you're afraid to gain fat and you don't want to let go of the physique you had on stage. Both are not healthy. You need to gain some fat after the show. It's not healthy for you to stay shredded year round. Your body likes to be at a certain fat percentage, and the goal is to get you to that where your body is most happy, so that we can push you forward and start growing again and getting you ready for whenever you're going to compete next. So you do need to gain some fat. Do not try to maintain the shreds. That's how eating disorders are born. So that's something to also be aware of. If you're having those thoughts and you're feeling very dysphoric about your body and fat gain, I will say there's a certain amount of normal to that. But if it's dictating how you're eating and really causing you stress, those are some red flags you might want to talk to someone, therapist, professional, that sort of thing, to really kind of get those thoughts in check. Make sure you're not headed into more of a disordered eating path, because that's not the situation we want to end up in either. We want to make sure that our relationship with food stays healthy throughout this process. Easier said than done when you've just come from restricting the hell out of your food into, actually eating like a human. So anyways, just be aware of those two spectrums. Neither are healthy, and we want to avoid those. All right. So now that we covered that, let's talk about reverse dieting. So after a show, you go through something called a reverse diet. And like I said, your insulin sensitivity is high at this point. Essentially, your body adapts. It's very smart. So it has adapted and become more efficient with lower calories. So the purpose of the reverse diet is to raise your body's metabolic rate back up so it adapts to be faster, higher, back to where it was before we started dieting. Because as I said, your body's smart. It becomes more efficient on lower calories, so it kind of learns to do more on lower calories, and therefore when you eat more, it's going to store more. So that's why when you reverse diet, you're bringing things up gradually. So you're trying to mitigate fat gain and taking the opportunity to build muscle in those situations, and then also raising up your metabolic rate so that you're bringing your base level your maintenance calories up, so that you're not just putting on more fat by going up too quickly. And it's like your body has become efficient on 1,500 calories. Then if you just bump it up to 3,000 calories, as you can imagine, there's going to be a lot of fat stored there. So instead of going from 1,500 to 3,000, we want to go in smaller increments. And that increment is going to be kind of different depending on the person and how quickly your body adapts. So that's all individual. Can't really give too much guidance on that, but take it slow. I wouldn't bump it up. I would say maybe like 200 calories a day, weekly. So if you're eating $1,500, yeah, 1,500 calories up to show day, then maybe the next week it'd be like, I'd say probably bring someone up to 1,800, since 1,500 is pretty low, and then just kind of slowly bring up from there. See how things look, get those progress photos, check-ins, that sort of thing. So anyways, that is the point of the reverse diet. It's a very important part, so don't ignore it. Listen to your coach, folks. If you're a client of mine, just know more food is coming. And the reverse diet is probably the hardest because you're still in a controlled eating environment when your body is telling you still to eat everything. And since you don't have this timeline of stepping on stage, knowing you're going to be on stage naked in a week or so is a pretty big accountability. So when you don't have that anymore, your fucks just seem to go way down. And then you're like, well, even if I do eat too much, no one's going to know because I'm not stepping on stage naked. Well, it's fair, but you're going to know. Your coach is going to know. And if you want to stay focused on your progress, then it's really important that you stay on track and not just, go ham on everything. Anyways, all right. So now what I really, really want to talk about is post-show blues. This is something that is not talked about enough, or it's more as people just like ignore it or think that it's not going to happen to them, because prep is its own beast, and it is hard and excruciating, but there's no other time you are more focused than during prep, almost to the point where it is excruciating, but at the same time you're not really feeling it, or you're not really feeling your emotions, because you're just focused on getting to that goal. You feel a lot of physical sensations in prep, which kind of allows for you to push any sort of emotions away. And so there might be, I feel like for post-show blues, it is a combination of things that really contributes to it. So one, I would say, basically having pushed your emotions aside during prep, not really feeling much besides the physical aspects of things, basically just, trying to push all feelings, emotions, and physical away, because you don't want to feel those things, because you just want to keep going. It's part of being an athlete. You learn how to tune those things out. But then when show's over, you no longer really have that distraction. So you might get some emotions that flood in that you didn't feel for the last, at least month, I would say. But also there's that anticipation to the show. There's excitement. There's anxiety. There is just the extreme focus on that goal, and you have a purpose. And that's why prep feels so good. Like, you have this purpose and you're striving for it. Nothing else matters. Blinders on, tuned in to, the finish line. And then you get there. And then after that, sometimes you feel a little lost, especially if you don't have any plans, or you're in for a long off season and you're not really sure when you're going to compete next. That's kind of where I'm at right now. And it can get hard because you're not sure where to put your focus, if you do feel a little lost and you're not being strategic about your off-season plans, those post-show blues can definitely come on in because you're on such a high. I would say for a good maybe even week 2 after, and then it just starts to come down. And it's normal, but I feel like sometimes we also interpret that as sadness or depression, but it can also turn into that, especially if you feel like you don't have direction. So I think it's very important to set out and set goals right out of the gate of completing stepping on stage. Know what you're working towards, plan ahead, because that's going to help you not only physically stay on track, but mentally it's going to help you from dipping too low in those post-show blues. And it's a real thing. All athletes tend to go through it, whether it's a basketball player and they're playing in like the NBA championship, or if you're a bodybuilder and you've been working months to get up on stage and now you feel a little lost because it's over. So that being said, I want you to anticipate that the post-show blues are going to happen. You are not special. You are human just like anyone else. And it's going to come for you. So just be prepared. Make sure you've got support, whether it's a coach, your friends. If you are a client of mine, please talk to me if you're feeling some post-show blues. And it might be also, not only just like focusing on your future goals, but doing things that also bring you joy and, relief from stress. So whether that is working out in the gym, or maybe you're into photography, maybe you have a hobby, definitely put your focus in things that make you feel good, just to give yourself more purpose and prevent that kind of lost feeling. So yeah, I think that's probably like the biggest thing that comes to mind when it comes to post-show blues. Yeah. Oh yeah, there's also the body image issues that can contribute. So like I said before, if you're someone who has a hard time letting go of your stage physique, that can also be a contributor to your post-show blues. I definitely had a period where it was kind of hard to let go of the physique because you work so hard, and it's so temporary. It sticks around for a little bit, and then you almost grieve it for a second. But as long as you're focused on, this is what I do, knowing that this is what I got to do in order to get better, and that's to put on some fat so that I can put on some muscle. If that remains your focus, you're going to be a lot better off. So let's see here. Yeah, as far as off season, that would be the next thing. Finding motivation in the off season. So once you're past, maybe like the first month out from a show, maybe you're about like 6 months out from when you did your show, you're going to start, you might start losing motivation sooner than that, but it starts to get stale. And you start wondering, am I making progress? It's harder to see progress when you're in the off season because you've got a layer of fat. And that's where depression can still sink in, because you still feel a little lost, like you're not working towards something. So again, is a good time to consider what you're working for in the future, making small goals along the way so that you have something to aim for. Even if you don't know like when you're going to compete again, setting goals for like every 3 months or etc. can be something that's going to be beneficial, because you're at least going to have something to aim for. And overall, still never forget, picture yourself on the stage next time and how badly you want to improve that physique. Everything you do right now is going to be the deciding factor of, how that goes. So again, don't underestimate staying on track in the off season, having small goals broken down, even if you don't know when you're going to be competing next. So another thing that is helpful to focus on in the off season is on your strength gains. So even if you can't see physical physique progress in your photos or etc., if you're focusing on getting stronger, watching those lifts go up, it's going to be a good indicator that you're still making progress. You're getting stronger, you're building muscle, and it's a good ego boost. So your perspective on, what determines your progress might shift a little bit in the off season. It just means focusing on something other than getting shredded. Getting shredded is only, one part of progress in bodybuilding. Putting muscle on is also a pretty massive piece of it. So anyways, I think that about wraps it up. Biggest thing is transitioning from the prep to off season is making sure you have a plan in place so you don't feel lost and you have a support system. If you start getting depressed, make plans for the future, break things down, keep a routine. Don't just throw your routine that you had in prep out the window. Keep at it because it's going to help you stay on track. And then it won't be hard to transition back into prep when you get back into whenever you're going to compete next. So the bodybuilding lifestyle is 24/7, 365. I think that's the thing that a lot of people don't really understand about the sport. When it comes to soccer, basketball, the game stops when you get off the field. Sport stops when you get off the field. With bodybuilding, it's all encompassing. It becomes your life. And if you're not into that, if that's not what you want, then bodybuilding might not be for you, but that's okay. You can still, work out and shit, hit the gym, and enjoy all the things that bodybuilding is without competing. But if you really want to compete and you want to be competitive, bodybuilding essentially consumes your whole life. And there's no end of the day checkout. It's like, it's your sleep, it's your nutrition, it's absolutely everything is involved in bodybuilding. So some things to consider, even if you're thinking about competing in bodybuilding. Just know it's one of those sports that you kind of need to be obsessive about. And I'm definitely obsessive. We'll talk about that at a different time. But yeah, it's a rough sport, but I swear it is the most rewarding because delayed gratification, again, nothing feels better than that. So, all right, I'm going to wrap this up, but good luck. And if you are competing soon, and congrats if you already competed and you're done and you're looking to transition into your off season. And just a few things to remember, take away. Again, I'm going to repeat myself a million times, but remind yourself the food is not going anywhere. Have a plan. Make goals right out of the gate so you have something to aim for. Have a support system. And, focus on your strength and different areas of progress outside of your physique. And, make sure you have friends, family support, that sort of thing. All right. So that is it. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, or if you're thinking about competing or have any questions about bodybuilding, let me know in the comments. If you have any topics suggested, I would love to hear them. So, all right, guys, that's it. Peace out. I'll talk to you next time.